Hi everybody and welcome back. My name is Alison, the online piano and the online violin tutor. So welcome to another subscriber video where you guys, my subscribers, send me in videos of anything that you might be having trouble with on either the violin or the piano, and I will make a video helping you and responding to whatever the issue is that you've got, like we're going to be doing in today's video. The details of where you can send these videos to and everything else is going to be directly underneath this video. So in this week's video we've got Alan from Uganda, and he has asked to improve or how he can improve his overall tone. So I don't know what piece it is that he's playing, but it doesn't really matter. He's just asking me to improve his overall tone, or generally what he can do to improve where he is now in his playing. So let's watch Alan's clip. Okay, so the first thing I would say about Alan is his posture, how he's holding the violin. It's a little bit too much out to the front, in my opinion. I would like to see the violin a little bit further out to the side. So if I'm face onto the camera like I am here now, so the camera is now at 12 o'clock to me, then I would want the violin out at about somewhere between sort of 10 o'clock and 11 o'clock, maybe 10, half past 10, you know, it's something like that. So not 9 o'clock because it's going to be too far out to the side, not 11 o'clock because it's going to be a little bit too far out to the front, but somewhere around about the 10 o'clock position. Now, if you've got the violin at that 10 o'clock position, then you're going to have the best chance of getting a nice tone. So the first thing before you do anything is to have the violin in the right position. If you haven't got the violin in the right position, nothing else will follow into place. So we've got the violin out at 10 o'clock, and the other thing is to make sure then that our bow goes with that. So at the moment, Alan is playing very much like this. So he's got the violin out to the front of him and the bow is here. So even though the bow is in the right position on the violin, and it seems to me from the video that he's bowing very straight, which is good, what he's going to be doing with his arm is doing all of this. So his arm is going to be hunching up. Can you see the difference between having the violin out here and having the violin out there? My shoulders are not actually moving. My shoulders are still facing you, the camera. But when I'm here, everything is open. All of my arm area here, I've got a larger space. As soon as the violin comes into there, my arm isn't moving. But now, if you notice, I've got a less of a space here, which means everything's going to be crunched up. Okay, so his bow looks too tight. So his bow is very perpendicular. He's got a very big gap between the hair and the bow. So it seems to me like he's very much over tightened the bow. If you over tighten the bow, you're going to get too much bounce. So that's me over tightening the bow. I can still play like that, but I'm not going to have as much flexibility and I'm going to have too much bounce. So I would just loosen the bow until you've got a little bit of a kind of bend in the middle here. Now that would still be too tight for me, so I would probably just loosen it off a little bit. So what you want is a little bit of a bend or a little bit of a curve in the middle of the bow with the wood part, not the hair, obviously the wood part when you loosen the bow. So I would do that, and that will allow you to have more movement, more flexibility, and a better tone with the bow, and stop any unwanted bouncing too. The left hand palm is too far up as well, and that kind of follows with where he's got his thumb placement as well. So he's placing the neck of the violin, I think, too much kind of in here. So it's literally like that, and then he's got his palm up. Now what you've got there is less flexibility, freedom and movement of the fingers the further up your palm is. His thumb is sort of sticking awkwardly out, which means he's not going to have a proper grip when he moves on a bit further, and he's certainly not going to have any chance of moving into any positions. So everybody does have a slightly different grip. For me, I tend to have my thumb directly underneath the violin, so I will have the pad of my thumb here will be holding the neck of the violin like that. That's just my preference. That's how I do it. That's how I teach, and that's how you see me do it in my tutorial videos as well. Some people have the thumb slightly higher up, so what they'll do is they'll still be holding with the pad of the thumb, i.e. opposite your fingernail, but it might be holding on the side of the violin instead of sort of underneath it. Whichever you do, it doesn't really matter, but you certainly don't want your thumb, the whole knuckle of your thumb poking up like that, which means you're going to have, your hand is going to be engulfed over too much. So you want to either be holding it like that or holding it underneath, whichever is kind of easier for you, and have the palm of the hand down. Now with the bow grip as well, the bow grip looks pretty good to me, but the wrist is down. So he's going to be playing like this. Now, if you don't have the wrist higher than your bow, or your wrist ought to be in line with your knuckles. If you don't have your wrist higher than the actual bow, then again, you're going to come unstuck later on down the line because you're not going to be flexible enough with bow movements. That doesn't really affect you now, or that won't really affect Alan now at this point, but it will later on down the line. So it's something that he should get used to, lifting his wrist up a lot higher. So you can see this is how I got my bow, and you can see my fingers are nice and, you know, my fingers are sitting on top of the bow. Alan has his like that. Another thing that sometimes beginners get caught out with is not having their strings in tune. Alan's strings seem perfectly in tune, so he's okay. But I just wanted to mention in there that another reason why the tone might not be sounding so good, apart from those things that I have just mentioned, is that your strings are not in tune. If your strings are not in tune, then everything is going to sound terrible regardless. Alan's intonation is very good, so that's good. I don't have to talk about that. And just make sure that the bowing is in the right place, and make sure that you want to be bowing sort of in the middle. So you don't want to be bowing too close to the bridge because you're going to get a terrible scratching sound. You don't want to be blowing too close to the fingerboard either because that's not going to give you a good sound. But you want to be bowing somewhere in the middle and nice and consistent. That's a lot harder to do when you're bowing like this as well, because everything is going to be completely hunched up. So if Alan were to work on all of those kind of basic posture points to start with, he'd find that his playing would eventually open up and sound a lot better as a result. It might not be an instant hit with results, but in time it will be, as he masters those basics and he gets used to playing in a much more efficient and more appropriate way. So I would say overall, he's got the basics and it's very, very good, but just a few things as a teacher that I would tweak that will go on to make him sound a lot better in the future. The only other thing I would mention to Alan is that perhaps he could incorporate a few fourth fingers. It might sound a little bit nitpicky here, but there were a few open strings that he was playing that he could have used a few fourth fingers with. Again, I don't know what the piece is, so I don't have the sheet music, but there were a few open A's and open E's. He could look back at the music and see which would feel appropriate to put in some fourth fingers. Fourth fingers are really good to do because they avoid string crossing. So if you've got a D, for example, third finger on the A string, and your next note is an E, and then your next note after that is another D on the A string, why would you play an open E? You're crossing strings, you've got a loud E ringing in there, and you've got the potential to kind of make that screeching sound that you get on the E string. So use a fourth finger because it keeps everything nice and clean, gives you the same or the similar kind of tone as playing a note that is using a finger. So compared to an open string is not the same, doesn't have the same kind of reverberation or ring as a note that you're using with a finger. So, and finally, not only does it keep it clean, but it keeps it all on the same string, so you don't have to cross strings. So thank you very much for watching, and thank you, Alan, for sending in that video. I hope it has helped you, Alan, and also I hope it has helped some other people as well, because I know a lot of you learning will probably be doing the similar kind of problems, because I see them and hear about them all the time. And like I said, if you've got a video that you want to send in to me, then head to the description underneath to see how you can do that. It's super simple. You don't have to be nervous or be worried about it. Just like I said, you don't even have to talk on the video, so just send me in a video clip and we'll address the problem together, and hopefully we can start making you all sound brilliant. So thank you very much for watching, and thank you again to Alan, and I will see you in my next video. Bye.